Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I'm David Madison. I'm the Executive Director of the Southwestern Association of Episcopal Schools. I'm joined today by our Director of Professional Development, Mary Catherine Duffy. Mary Catherine, good afternoon.
Hello, everyone.
Hope that everyone is having a great afternoon. Just a couple of items of housekeeping before we get started. First, a recording of this webinar will be available on our website in our webinar library. So if you want to go back and review some of the content, take a look at some of the slides, you'll have access to that in our webinar library. It'll be available there in a couple of days. Second, I want to make sure that everyone knows how to use the Q&A box. You should see a button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A. If you will push on that button, a Q&A window will come up, and then you will be able to type in questions to us throughout the webinar. And if you have any questions, please feel free to type those in. Let's take the Q&A box for a little test drive. If you will type in the city that you are joining us from and enter that as a question, we'll make sure the Q&A box is working well. And we've got a variety of different cities here: Houston, Edinburgh, Baton Rouge, San Antonio, Covington, Waco, Texarkana. It's all working really well. Lake Charles, fantastic. So glad to see everyone here today. And again, as questions pop up, go ahead and type them in. We'll stop throughout the afternoon and answer some questions, but don't lose any questions. Make sure to type them in as soon as they pop up so that you don't lose them. And thank you again so much for being with us. I'm going to turn it over to Mary Catherine Duffy.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Marketing is one of my favorite subjects, and I am really excited to be with you today and talk to you about this. It's marketing season for most of us, and the reality is that marketing is a hard concept, and it's unique to each school. But we do have some things that we can work together on to figure out how to market our school best. So let's just jump right in. Today, we're going to focus on kind of two areas. We're going to focus on the marketing calendar, and after that, we're going to focus on the steps to consider or things to think about when you're developing your marketing plan. And I want to reiterate that today's webinar is going to talk about two different areas. It's going to talk about internal marketing and external marketing. So before we begin jumping right in, I want to make sure that everybody understands the difference between internal and external marketing. Internal marketing is the marketing or re-recruitment of current families, and external marketing is the recruitment of new families. And I think oftentimes when we think about marketing and we talk about marketing, we think we're only talking about open houses or things that are going to mine our community for new families or prospective families. But the reality is that we have families in our school that every single year have to be re-recruited and remarketed to. And so the planning of that, the preparation of that is really important. And then, and really the big picture is making sure that our families, both our current families and prospective families, know that we want them to be a part of our school community. And there are a variety of ways to do that, but we have to be prepared when we get started. We have to be prepared to put our plan into place. So let's go ahead and jump right into the marketing calendar. One of the things that I have run across just recently in working with schools is that I've found that there are a number of schools that don't necessarily have a marketing calendar, a preparation type of steps that they go through in getting ready to market both internal and externally. And so I wanted to start here so that you could have some tangible ideas of when you should start that and what you should do in each month. And so we're going to begin with December, and I begin December with kind of with a caveat. I've put in here December-ish because different schools do things differently depending upon where they live. I know that some of the bigger schools in the bigger cities tend to begin marketing earlier in the fall than December. They begin to do some things to get ready for that because that is the season in which people begin to look for the next year. I found that in Harlingen, we did not really have a lot of people stepping out and coming to see us before around December. And so December worked out for us to be the time that we really began to put together our marketing plan for the spring and to jump right into it in January. So having said that, this idea of setting tuition rates and touring in December, please know that that may be different for a larger school or a school that is in a community where there are a number of private schools to look at. And so I do think that that's one warning. Having said that, I recommend that we begin setting tuition rates in December for the coming year. We did not always do that here in Harlingen. We used to do that around January, but what I found is that it really put me in a bind as far as being able to provide enough time for us to put together marketing collateral and the new tuition rates and all of that information that we knew when we came back from Christmas, we would have people asking about that. And so so we moved that setting of tuition rates to December, and it for our school it really helped. And so I recommend that you consider, if you're not already doing that, set your tuition rates in December so that you have that information ready to go when January hits. The other thing is that we again began touring in December, mostly in January, but we would have some people come in December, and that may or may not be the case for your community. But we are always, all year long, we're touring and accepting applications, but we began to really see that influx happen in December. Let's go to, January. So December, again, we're finishing up. December is a crazy month for everyone in a school. So the more you can do in the fall before you start in January, the better. But one of the things that we would begin preparations for in December and finish in January is the updating of our marketing collateral. And that's an important thing to do in January. It's important that you make sure that your marketing collateral is updated. It looks professional. It looks like that you are have thought it through, and that you're putting all the information in it that you want to be put in it. This would be information that you're going to give out as a new admissions packet. And you're going to want your new tuition rates in there. You do not want to put old tuition rates in there. So that's important. This idea of marketing collateral, a lot of people, I think, don't do enough only about once every, say, 2 to 3 years. I was able to do that once every 2 to 3 years because we would make it pretty professional, and then we would make sure that we didn't put dates on anything, any of the brochures or anything. And about every 2 to 3 years, you need to update that. For sure, you need to update the information that's timely, but making sure that your marketing collateral looks professional and looks updated is a critical component, and that stuff should be ready to go in January. One of the things that we did with our marketing collateral in January is that we would go and visit schools that were feeder schools for us, schools that matriculated at the end of where we were beginning. And this can be tricky, but I think it's an important thing to do. If you develop relationships with schools in your area that may matriculate where you begin, then it's an easy feeder opportunity. If you have schools that may share, like if you have a Mother's Day Out program in your community that offers a pre-K program and you offer a pre-K program, then you would not want to go to them and say, hey, can we market to your pre-K kids? But we do want to market to your kids that are leaving your school and need a place to go. And when you develop that relationship and you are honest with those schools about what you're looking to do, usually they're going to be open to the possibility. And we did do that. And we took our marketing collateral to those schools, and we invited those schools, those parents, to come to our school and to come to our open houses to look at what we were doing. So that's another reason that you want to have your marketing collateral ready in January. The other side for that, so that would be external marketing. The other side would be the internal marketing, and the idea that you begin creating re-enrollment packets for every family in your school that's current. Now, at our school, what we did is we created a re-enrollment packet for every family that included a contract for every child in the family, and a verification sheet that made sure that we understood and if there were changes of address or any information like that. And we usually did a tuition rate sheet. That information is again internal. It's for you to send out to your school community, your current families, to make sure that they know what the information is, and to get those contracts back in a timely manner, so you know who's re-enrolled. And so that's really important to begin in January as well. Let's go back. Oh, one thing I did want to say about the re-enrollment packet before we go forward. A lot of people will ask, how do you communicate a tuition increase? You can do this any number of ways. A lot of it depends on what the tuition increase is. If the increase is big, then I really recommend that you create opportunities for face-to-face meetings. Maybe one year that we did a pretty big tuition increase, I created a PowerPoint presentation, and we offered a morning, like a before school, a lunch, and an evening meeting for parents to come and see my presentation about what we were doing and why we were increasing our tuition. We've also done letters that go into the re-enrollment packet that say this is what the board has decided to do, and this is why. And so I think it really kind of depends on what the tuition hike is, but I do think it's important to communicate in some form or fashion what the tuition increase is going to be. David, did you have any added addition to that on tuition?
No, I mean, again, how you communicate that needs to be intentional. The average tuition increase in our schools every year is between 3.5% and 4%. So I get nervous if schools aren't increasing tuition at some point every year, just because your expenses increase every year. And if you don't do a small increase every year, then what you'll have to do eventually is face a very large increase.
Right.
And then that can be dicey as well. So no, I think you just intentionally communicate. I think it's great to highlight if there are new initiatives. I think it's great to highlight why those tuition increases are happening. More often than not, a big part of tuition increases, a big part of it's a reflection that our biggest expense are people, and we want really great people. And there's no way to attract and retain the best quality teachers if we're not being very intentional about salaries. There's no way to do that without wrestling with the tuition question as well. So be intentional about it. I love the idea. I love the idea about scheduling a session for them if you want to come in and talk. Some schools do that, some schools don't. It just depends. I also think it's important that the letter that talks about the increase comes from both the head of school and the president of the board.
Yes,
Like
yes,
really
absolutely.
a board decision, not the head unilaterally making a decision. I've got a question.
Yes.
Okay, do you share the specific percentage increase, or just share that there is an increase and why? How would you respond to that, MK? Do you lead with
Gosh.
you've done an X% increase, or do you lead with here's why we're doing it, and attached is the tuition schedule?
Yeah, I guess the real question is that they're going to do the math. Some people are going to do the math. Some people are not. I guess it kind of depends. We have in the past pretty much said this is the tuition increase, and this is what the new initiatives are, and this is the kind of thinking behind it. And so I don't know that there's a black and white answer on that. I think that people are going to do the math. So for me, it doesn't seem to, it's not that big of a deal to say this is what the tuition increase is. I do like the idea of connecting it with, connecting the tuition increase with your initiatives and the things that you're doing. And I think it's a marketing deal here. I think this tuition it's part of internal marketing to continually say, this is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is what it costs.
There's a great study, and tuition increases are always a source of anxiety. There's a really great study that ISM and NBOA, the National Business Officers Association, has conducted. They've conducted it 3 times now. You can find it. It's published on the website. You just Google ISM or MBOA, National Business Officers Association, tuition increase study. Um, there's very little correlation, if any, between tuition increases and people departing the school. The
Right.
concern is always that, well, if we do a 3%, 4% increase, everyone's going to leave. And the issue is value proposition. The
Right.
issue is whether or not families feel they're receiving value for what they're paying. That's way more important than the specific amount of the increase. And frankly, the value proposition, a big part of that is how you're communicating that, how you're highlighting
Marketing.
it, how you're making sure they
Correct.
understand, here's why we're increasing tuition, and here's how it directly affects the student experience. Here's a comment: I found it helpful to show the monthly amount so they can see how minimal the amount changes. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
Sometimes if you say the percentage, that's one thing, but then if you show that percentage change is, not that huge amount in dollars, that's a better way to do it too. So
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And that speaks a little bit to the tuition rate sheet and how you make that how you put that out there. And so I do recommend that you put the monthly amount, and that you maybe even make a, say it's this much per month more. It's a $5 increase per month or
right.
whatever. That's super helpful.
Yeah, that's a great
Okay,
way to describe that.
let's keep going. So also in January, we're going to focus on scheduling open houses, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. We're going to be talking about faculty conversations with parents and continue our touring. One of the things that I want to reiterate on scheduling open houses is that you could do it a number of ways. One year, I thought it would be a great idea to do an open house for every individual grade level. And that was probably fun for the parents and great for the parents. It was awful for me because I did 13 open houses in 1 3-week period. And honestly, I don't think that it was real effective. I don't think it was any more effective. Yeah, it's got to be a record. And I was exhausted. But so I don't necessarily recommend that. I think that was probably too much. But we also one year did just one open house at night. And honestly, that wasn't effective at all. And so I think there's an in-between. One of the ways that we're going to talk about in bump up days in just a little bit, but I think that there are ways that you can focus on levels that you really feel like are important to do some individual open houses, and that you can do it in different, more effective ways than doing one for every grade level. The second way, besides open houses, is the faculty conversations with parents. I can tell you that our faculty was pivotal in making sure that parents knew about why that whole value proposition concept. The teachers were the front lines of that. And so the more you can get your teachers involved in having conversations with parents about why they should return, the more you can get them involved in meeting new families when they come for a tour, the better. And we did something in the fall one year, which this is an idea that you could do beginning next fall. We created, and I'm pretty sure we stole this from All Saints Fort Worth, but we created these things called looking forward cards. And basically what in the fall conference for like second grade, when they did their mandatory conferences, the second grade teachers would give this card to the parents and say, okay, this is what we're doing in second grade, but I'm going to give you this because I want you to be aware of what's coming in third grade. What are the exciting things that happen in third grade? And I want you to know how we're preparing your child for third grade. And what that did is it kept third grade on the radar screen for these families, and it kept the conversation going so that parents knew that we weren't just working as in a silo kind of mentality where it's just second grade. We were thinking about the next grade level and how that would work. So that was really helpful. The idea of the faculty selling the next grade level is critical. So the way you do that is you make sure that your teachers are talking and working vertically together so that the second grade teacher knows what's going on in third grade, and first grade teacher knows what's going on in second grade. And so they know what was behind and what's going forward so that they can speak to the question of, well, because inevitably it's going to happen. The teacher is going to get this question. Hey, Miss So-and-so, I really love you in second grade, but what do you know about the third grade teacher? What do you know about is she going to be as good as you? Is my kid going to like her? That's going to happen. And so the teachers need to be equipped to be able to say, oh my gosh, you're going to love third grade at St. Swithin's. It's a great, this is what they do. They're really focusing on this. What we're doing this year gets them ready for that kind of thing. That's really tactical marketing that cannot be done through a brochure. And so it's really critical that your parents hear that from their faculty, and the faculty have got to be ready to answer those questions. Then finally, we continue in January to tour. We're accepting applications. And then we get to February and March. So February and March was always just such a busy time. We were doing a lot of touring, but we were also doing a lot of internal marketing. We tended to create, get our re-enrollment packets ready and put them out about the middle of February is when we usually put them out. And along with that, we did a variety of things to get ready. The first thing we did is that we would do some re-enrollment incentives. When those packets went out, we offered incentives to families to get them back quickly, to get their contracts back quickly. And those ideas included, I don't know if it's just Harlingen, but kids love uniform-free days. And I swear one year I had one kid who had so many uniform free passes that I really had to like change it up because I don't know how he got them all. He had several brothers, maybe he stole them, I don't know. But we were giving away uniform free passes like they were candy. But they really do work. And so if you say, hey, your kid gets a free uniform pass if they get their packet back in the first week, the kids will love it. The other thing that really worked is, and this needed to be a board decision because it required money, but we put in a financial incentive to draw for a month's free tuition, and that has been really helpful. Tracy Lehman did that with our school last spring, and I kid you not, they had a ton of re-enrollments back within the first week because people wanted their name in that hat. And then she drew the name on Facebook, and they got a month's free tuition in May. So that's another way to do that. I would recommend and make sure that if you're going to do any financial incentives, that you make sure you budget for that. But these re-enrollment incentives are important because they help people get their packets back, and then you have better information. The second thing I want to encourage you to do is admissions testing. This, again, you guys know me, and you know that I'm all about stealing from other schools and then giving them credit. So I'm going to throw out St. George for just a minute. St. George allowed us to come and watch their admissions testing, St. George and San Antonio. And they had a great admissions process where they invited new 4K kids and kinder kids to come and spend a morning, and they did some testing with them. And we created a similar thing at St. Albans. And what admissions testing does, it really helps you know kind of if the child is going to be a fit for your school, if you're going to be a fit for them. It gives you the data that you need to help transition the child into the school community. We really recommend admissions testing for kids in 4K and older to ensure that you are, you're getting the adequate information. And then finally, once the 2-week period is up and you've gotten all your current families re-enrolled, then you register your new students. I would consider, what we did is we usually finished about like the deadline for re-enrollment was on a Friday, like maybe the last Friday of February. And we would then Monday take all of the new students, siblings, alumni, et cetera. We have a admissions process that we went through, kind of the priority status, and we would place those students, and then we would call them on Wednesday, gave us a couple of days. Then we would call the new families on Wednesday and say, we've got a contract for you, we've got a place for you. If we had a child who we weren't going to be able to place in the right in a place that they thought, or they weren't going to be a fit, then we made phone calls about that. But I do think you should consider giving priority status to siblings and alumni. Some schools give priority status to parishioners St. Albans did that for many years, but we kind of stopped that because we didn't really have a black and white way of knowing whether you were a parishioner or not, rather than the priest saying yes, that, and my priest didn't want to be the person who did that. So we changed that, and we only gave alumni the priority status. Now that's just our school. Other people do that differently. New
Kath,
students get placed.
let me stop and ask a question. We've had a follow-up question
Okay.
about admissions testing.
Okay.
Let me ask, what's commonly used as an admissions test? I'm assuming the test changes based on age and grade level. Yes, the test definitely changes based
Definitely.
on age and grade
Definitely.
level. As we go up the spectrum, ERB is really popular. There's a handful of different, more standardized tests. With regard to K and pre-K, I see.
We use the Bracken.
Yeah, talked a little bit about that. I don't see one particular approach across the board when I look at Ks and pre-Ks. I see a variety of different instruments and processes used, especially a visit day. But MK, tell us a little bit about what you use.
Well, we really developed our own because St. Albans did not use the ERB. We would, for the older grades, ask for any kind of standardized testing that had been done. But we really, honestly, we developed our own process. So for the 4K and kinder, we did the Bracken, and we did some other things that were, it was a morning visit, and we did some other things that were in the classroom with the teacher. The older grades, so if you're going into first grade and you're a current kinder student going into first grade, what we would do is we would have the kinder and first grade teachers kind of work together to develop a test. Depended on too when they were coming in. I mean, if they're coming in for the next year, then that's easier to go, okay, what do we want kids to know when they're coming into first grade? If you're doing an admissions test in the middle of the year, that's going to be different. That's going to be individualized. But for St. Albans, we kind of developed our own, the teachers helped, the administrators helped, and we kind of developed our own stuff to ensure that that we were getting the information that we needed.
So I've opened up.
Yeah, some people do use the ERB.
I've opened up in the chat line as well. If you look at the chat stream that I've opened up, I've asked everyone, what does your admissions testing look like? So if participants want to kind of type in different tests they use, what their process looks like in just a couple of sentences, you can do that, and then everyone will be able to benefit from that. So back to MK.
That's great. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. I just want to summarize on just a few things that we've been talking about the calendar. Preparation is key when it comes to marketing. You want to be sure that you have all your documents, everything in order, everything looks good. This is a practical, obvious thing, but when you're putting together marketing collateral, ensure that there's no typos or grammatical errors. Nothing worse than a school putting out something that has a grammatical error in it. And I've done it, so I'm not saying that by any means that it's that I'm guilty of it, which is why I know that it's terrible. I think it's really critical that you always remember that re-recruiting your current families, that's all year long. You're marketing to your families all year long. I think that we all can agree that the reality is that we are competing against a lot of new choices. There are a lot of choices out there that people have to choose from, and we need to continually be marketing to the families that are in our school that say, hey, this is why you choose us, and we want you to keep choosing us. I think also the other thing I would say about the calendar is that having a hard deadline for returning contracts is critical to your planning. I don't think it's appropriate to let families just say, yeah, we're going to come, because honestly, you can't make a plan on, yeah, we're going to come. You need you need a registration fee, you need a down payment, and you need a contract in place. And that at least you can plan on that. So those are the two things that I would like to summarize about the calendar. Let's now go to the steps for marketing your school. And I see that we do have some, oh good, we do have some things that people can, some other ideas of what people are doing. So I think that'll be super helpful. All right, let's talk about the kind of steps for marketing your school. We've talked about preparing the plan. Now we're going to talk about the execution of the plan. And that is really kind of divided into 3 sections. The first is to create your story. The second is to build your brand. And the third is to communicate your message. So let's kind of talk about what it means to create your story. You know, this is kind of simple. And we're going back. Yeah, there we go. The idea that everyone has a story to tell, obviously that's true. And we all, I think, have worked with that on what is our story and how are we communicating that to our community. But I think it's really important for you to try to really think out of the box here when you're beginning to try to figure out what your story is. We all are Episcopal schools. We all have a similar DNA or ethos that we share, the idea around educating the whole child, or the mind, body, spirit. I think all that's really good and important, but you almost have to think a little bit outside of the box, because what we're seeing, at least what we saw here in the Rio Grande Valley, is that we've got some charter schools out there who are talking about the same thing. And they are talking about educating the whole child, and they're talking about some of the same areas that we have always kind of had in our back pocket as Episcopal schools that maybe other people didn't have. I think that's changing. And so it's really important to begin to think outside the box when you're considering your story. I think it's also important that you remember that your story comes from your community. Not just from your own thoughts about what the school is about, but what your community thinks the school is about. So if you go to the next slide, there are some questions that you want to maybe ask as you begin to create your story. Obviously, what is our mission? I think that the mission statement, again, we all have somewhat similar mission statements. We all have some similar things that we can share in our mission statements, but what are our core values? Who are we in our community? Who is our audience? Who is coming outside from our community to look at our school? What are our strengths? What are the things that we do best? Who do our parents say we are? I like that one, because sometimes, and I know I was guilty of this, having been at my school for 17 years, I knew very clearly what I thought our school was. And I'm not sure that I always was paying attention to what other people thought the school was. And so I think it's appropriate, as you begin to ask your story, create your story, to ask the question, hey parents, who do you say that we are? Because they're the people out there in the community talking about your school. I don't think it would be a bad idea, as you begin to create your story, to maybe put together a group of people from different stakeholders in your community and maybe ask that question.
That's very biblical. Who do you say that I am?
Yeah, who do you say that I am? The reality is that we do that when we're creating a self-study. We put together people and we ask lots of questions, or when we're doing a strategic plan. But I think it would be a good idea to sit down with some parents and I would do parents from preschool and lower grades and upper grades and middle school. And if you have a whole high school, I would do everybody. What do our parents, and just write and just get the answers. And then I think you'll come up with a theme of how people view your school. I think to ask, what is our why? I chose the St. Swithin's. Why do people choose St. Swithin's over the local public school or the private school or the charter school? Why are people choosing us? And then what's our 5-minute elevator speech? That's the whole, that's the old school kind of, if you're stuck in an elevator with somebody and they said, well, tell me about your school, what would you say? These are all things that you should do when you're creating your story. And you should ask for input. You shouldn't create your story if you're a head of school, or it's just you and your marketing director or whatever. You really should ask other stakeholders to participate in that. I think you'll get a more holistic story if you do that. Okay, let's go to the next page, and we're going to talk about the second step, which is to build your brand. And the brand, you know, I think sometimes people are confused about what a brand is. A brand is just the promise that you make to your families. Um, it's what you represent as a school. And you know, perfect example is the apple on an apple. You know, when you look at the apple on your computer or on your iPhone or whatever, you look at that apple and you know exactly what Apple stands for. And that's a tangible representation of your brand, but the brand itself is really your story in a nutshell. Okay. And so it's really important that as you develop your brand and your story, that you do some things that will get that brand out there to other people, and people will remember it. There's a lot of white noise out there, as you well know. There's a lot of noise on social media. There's a lot of noise on the TV and on the, you know, on the radio, and you need to be able to kind of stand out. And so ways to do that in a tangible way are, number one, develop or update a logo. If you do not have a logo for your school, you need one. And one of the things that St. Albans did, because we were a parochial school, a parish day school, we have a common logo between our church and school. I personally think that that's really important. I think that that the church and school in that kind of environment should share a logo, because it shows the bigger community that you're one body. And so we shared the same logo. We made sure that it was updated. We updated it. You don't have to do this every year. By all means, you shouldn't do it every year because it's your message, but you should definitely ensure that it's updated, that it's crisp, because you want to get that logo out everywhere. You want people to be able to see that logo and know who you are. The website, you know, the website was always a little bit of my arch nemesis, because the website is really hard to continually keep updated. And it was an area that I struggled with, because I did not have an internal person who was updating my website, and I didn't know how to do it myself. And so I had to get the information to them and had to depend on them to get it done. And so while it can be a pain, the website really is the first thing that people go to oftentimes when they're looking at your school. And so it's really important that if you don't have a website, that you get one. And if you have one, that it's updated. Make sure that it doesn't have, and again, I'm telling you this, having made this mistake myself, nothing worse than to get a phone call from a parent, mainly a board member parent, that says, hey, you've got a calendar on your website from 2 years ago. Ouch. Make sure that it's updated. Make sure that the information is on there, because otherwise, and make sure, again, I cannot stress this enough, that there are no grammar errors. There are not misspellings. That can just turn a family off very quickly. So that's a critical component. When you're developing, we talked a little bit about this earlier about your marketing collateral, but when you develop marketing collateral, brochures, or things that you are going to put out there, I have found that pictures are the best ways to make those go longer. The more text you put in there, the less likely you can keep it for a couple of years, because it can be outdated. But if you put pictures and lots of pictures, people love pictures. It kind of gives an understanding of what your school looks like. People love pictures of kids and happy people and happy teachers. So I encourage you to use pictures, and to use pictures so that you can keep that. We spent quite a bit of money on it was a folder that had our brochure in it. So we did a folder and then we did a brochure, and both of those we tried to make sure that we could use them for at least 2 seasons and maybe 3. And I think we were able to do that. We did have to update them after about year 3, but the stuff in it, we continually ensured that made sure that if we did a school profile, that we had all of that updated. But the folder itself, which was the most expensive part of it, didn't have any dates on it. It didn't have any names on it, so that if anything changed, we could still use it the next season. And also, finally, a marketing video. You know, I've used a marketing video. Again, I used a marketing video that I could use for a couple of years because we spent some money on it. And in Harlingen, a good marketing video is going to be between $3,000 and $4,000. It's going to be a lot more other areas. You might get lucky and have a school parent who's able to do that for you, and it's professional. But for me to do the marketing video, it needed to be professional, and it also needed to have information from parents, teachers. We had, when we did our marketing video, the first marketing video we did, we had some beloved past faculty that came on and talked about the school. We had some alumni, we had students talk about the school, we had parents interviewed, and that's the kind of stuff that people love. And again, lots of pictures of our facility, lots of pictures of the things that we felt like were the most important things that we wanted to message. Because remember, this is consistent messaging. So you want to make sure that your logo is on there. You want to make sure that everything is consistent and that the messaging is all there. These are the ways that you build your brand in your community, and you're building it also for your current families. Okay. So then our final step is to communicate the message. I love this picture. I don't know why I love it, but it's exactly what we're supposed to be doing, is to trying to get our message out to everybody that will listen about why our schools are the best. And there are lots of ways to communicate. That's yelling into a microphone, maybe one of them. It may not be the most effective one, but there are some other ones that are not as effective as I would like, and I want to talk about those. So some of our traditional ways that we communicate, you know, when I began at St. Albans, my first year, actually, before I even was hired, they did a little marketing initiative that was to put our name out there, that we bought a billboard. We were on TV. They did a TV spot. This was back in the early 2000s, so it was a long time ago, but we did some direct mail work. And these are traditional marketing strategies that I think work for some schools, and they work for some businesses. For my community, the billboard, while I was lots of fun to have a billboard, it's expensive, and it's in one place. So if you're not driving by that one place, you're not going to see my billboard, and that's hard. That was hard for me to take. TV is the same way. It's very expensive. And, you know, today, I don't even know that TV would be even a relevant way to do it, because so many people do streaming. So many people don't even do cable. And so you don't even get that, you know, you don't get commercials like that. Direct mail is an okay way. It can be, we've got some pros and cons of that, for that, but it can work. And then newspaper, you know, people put ads in the newspaper. They'll put in kind of open house stuff, or when they've done, you know, when they've got kids who are doing well, they'll put that stuff in. For me, newspapers did not work. And this is one of the questions that one of my board members always asked whenever we were about to spend money on marketing. Is this going to put butts in the seats? That's what he would always say. Is this going to put kids in our seats? And that's a relevant question when you're about to spend a lot of money. So the pros and cons of traditional marketing, you know, traditional marketing can work. That's on the next slide, David. It can work, but when you are doing a direct mail, you can target a niche audience. You can put more detailed information in that. And billboards and TV do reach a wider group of people, but they can also be very cost prohibitive. It's hard to know if it's working. You know, they can be labor intensive, especially your direct marketing piece where you're mailing stuff out. And a lot of times you get a low response rate on direct mail pieces. So I feel like that there are some other ways for our schools that we can do a better job of marketing. So let's go back. Let's talk about the different ways that I feel like are most effective in communicating our story. Open houses. Social media is huge, referrals, and it's something we call inbound marketing. So let's first start with open houses, because this is probably my favorite way. Those of you who know me know that I am a people person. I like one-on-one communication. I like to had the opportunity to talk about and tell my story to someone. And so that's why I really like face-to-face communications. Bump up days are a great way to get people excited, especially re-enrollment, from re-enrollment, because you can focus on the critical breakpoints, the areas that you have higher attrition. For our school, it was 4K to kinder and kinder to first. Those were some breaks that we felt like we really had to focus on. I love bump up days because we were able to make it fun for the students and they wanted to go to the next grade level. I think we all know that if our kids are excited about going to this school and about what they get to do next year, they're going to be able to convince their parents to be excited as well. I think that the idea around inviting your parents to come in, one of the things that we did is we would create an activity. So for kinder to first, we would create an open house during the school day, and we would match up buddies, kindergarten buddies to first grade buddies. And we would invite the parents to come alongside and come and watch the activity that the kids were doing. Sometimes we invited the parents to participate in that activity. Maybe it was when we did everyday math, maybe we would do an everyday math activity, and we would invite the first grade buddy would invite the kindergarten buddy to help, and the kindergarten parent was there to help as well. And the parents would see the kids excited. The parents would then see kind of the hands-on activities and the way the teacher interacted in the room. It was great, and it really was helpful, I think. Of course, as the head of school, I would be right in the middle of that, talking to parents, asking them what they were going to be doing next year, asking them if they had questions. So these bump up days are great. When we did bump up day for 5th to 6th, we did invite an alumni to come back. 6th grade is where we matriculated. And so we would invite a 7th or 8th grader, or maybe even a high school kid, to come back and talk to the 5th grade children about why they thought they should stay for 6th grade. Oftentimes we'd have a parent come and say, talk about why they felt like having stayed for 6th grade, their kid was prepared for 7th. So those are areas that at your school, you have to figure out what those attrition areas are, but those are great ways to do it. The other thing is the grade level open house. Again, if you know that there's a grade level that may have some attrition that's not your traditional ones, to have one of those. Again, I think 13 grade level open houses might be a little much, but if you know that you've got maybe a class that seems like there's a few kids that may want to leave, to work on those kids specifically and have the opportunity to get in front of those parents is really important. We do a thing at St. Albans that we stole from, well, technically we didn't steal it because they did it at a SAES conference years ago. Fort Worth, All Saints Fort Worth presented at a conference where they did what they called all day at St. What was it
Just
called?
all day at All Saints.
All day at All Saints, and we called it all day at STA. And it's an all day open house. We started at 8 in the morning and we finished at 3, and we had a schedule, and people could come and go all day long. They could go into any level that they wanted. We had a luncheon for the parents with me and with the rector, where we had the opportunity to talk with parents and do a presentation. Is it a dog and pony show? Absolutely. And that's the point of it. It's a great internal marketing opportunity as well as an external one, because you can invite people that, we would do individual private tours, but we would also say, hey, come to all day at open house, all day at STA, and you can see every aspect of the school. One of the stories that came out of the very first year that I did all day at STA was I had a school parent who was, she was all in. She had 3 kids at the school. She was on my board. She loved the school. And she came to that and spent the whole day at the school. And she came to me afterwards and said, I was blown away because I never thought to go and look above the grade level that my oldest was going in. And so she had little ones. She had like a 4K kid and a 1st grader and a 3rd grader. And she came and she went to 4th grade and 5th grade and 6th grade. And what it did is it just gave her the whole picture. And I thought it was so interesting because this was a parent who I didn't need to re-recruit her. She was in. And yet that day really, really got her attention. And so I think that the idea of an all-day open house is really helpful because it develops a long-range view of the school, and it tells your little kid parents, your preschool parents, why they should stay all the way through 6th grade. So I love the all-day open house concept. And then parent ambassador tours are really important. I think that when you can include parents who love the school and ask them to help give tours of the school, it gives a little bit of credibility that maybe you don't have. I mean, I always used to say that people, they pay me to love the school. They pay me to teach, to talk about the school. But when you have parents that have chosen your school, and they're going to be helpful in messaging. And so I think face-to-face communication really is the most effective marketing. Okay, so social media, guys, is huge. And I think if you are not doing social media, that you are really missing the boat. You can use social media for re-recruitment, and you can also use it for recruiting prospective families. Now, I'm going to tell you that social media, some parts of social media are easy and some are not so easy. So I had the most luck with Facebook and Instagram. I tried to live tweet an all day at STA one year, and it just about killed me because live tweeting is a lot of work. So Twitter was not, one of the most effective ways that I had, but a lot of people use Twitter and watch Twitter. So you might find that Twitter works. I love the idea of a YouTube channel for a school. It's kind of tricky because you've got to make sure that you've got your permissions in place, that you're making sure that that you're not putting kids on YouTube that people, there's some trickiness there, but if you can get away.
That's the same with all your photos too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, we talked about the importance of photos, but I think we also have to recognize that we can't assume that everyone's going to be okay with pictures of their kids being in promotional materials. So however you handle that, either individually or in your enrollment contract or through a separate addendum, however you want to do that, just be intentional about making sure you have permission to use video and pictures of kiddos in your promotional materials before you send it off to be printed. I want to throw out another question that I answered by text, but it applies to social media. We had a question that came through about if you do a marketing video, where do you showcase that? Live TV, social media, website. I think definitely website is where I see most of those done. I mentioned I know a couple of the schools and smaller markets explore television spots. I'm not sure about the return on investment. You kind of talked about that earlier. But a YouTube page is a really interesting place to showcase some of the marketing videos that you may have developed.
We did it on Facebook. We did it on Facebook, all over Facebook. And in fact, if you do it on Facebook and then you do you buy an ad, then it'll continually post. One of the things that we found is that, at least for now, our school parents were mostly on Facebook and Instagram because they were in their late 20s to 30s to early 40s. But that's going to change too, because the more social, the older your parents get and the younger your parents get, young 25-year-olds, I have a 23-year-old. Those kids are not necessarily on Facebook. So if you've got 25, 26, 27-year-old parents, they may not be on Facebook. They may only be on Instagram, and it may be that you just do Instagram. So you've got to be paying attention to that as well. But I definitely think that videos need to be on Facebook. I definitely think they need to be on your website. And I send them out via email. I send them out via email. I send them to parishioners. I send them email because that way people could forward them to prospective families if they wanted. So I liked that as well.
Great comment too from a participant, just sharing some best practices. Yeah, if you have a video or image series you want to post on your website and then repost that link to your social media in order to drive traffic to your website, absolutely. And then depending on a lot of the websites, like our website, we've got the capacity to automate that. So a lot of your websites have the ability, if you post a video, then it will automatically push it out on whatever streams you have loaded in. So, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. and then you just, as Colin mentioned, yeah, you put it on one spot, and then that will go out to social media and then repost that and push that out. And it's great to have a handful of parents that are active on social media who are great at reposting and liking your
Right.
post to try to increase some activity there.
Well, the other thing that you can do too with the parents, when at least for sure with on Facebook, is that you can tag your parents. And what happens is when you post a video on your social media page and you tag parents, it goes onto their page, and so their friends who may not be members of your school community see what's happening in your school. So it's a cool way to do it.
We've got another question. We've been talking about social media. Someone asked, Lark asked, was anyone had any luck with radio advertisement? And I was about to automatically say no, but now that I think about it, we did in Fort Worth, I think either sponsored an event or maybe purchased advertising space on the local public radio station. So I think if there's a particular, we kind of looked at the demographics, and a lot of our families listen to one particular station. So we were able to see some return on investment there. So I don't see a lot of activity in the radio world, but again, if you can identify that one particular station is hitting a lot of your parents, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. It's probably less expensive than television, but honestly, I haven't priced that type of media buy in a while, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about is the idea around referrals and inbound marketing. So again, you've got to get help from your community. You cannot. I made the mistake in the beginning of feeling like I was the only one selling the school, and everyone has an obligation to sell the school and market the school. One way you can do that with your families is considering offering financial incentives for families who bring in new families. We did this in the very beginning when I first started at St. Albans. We did it, and after a while, it ceased to be effective. So we got rid of it. And then last year, when we got a new head of school, they decided to redo that, and it became super effective again. So basically what you do is you offer a financial incentive to any family who brings in a new family. Now what that means is they have to, in our situation, they had to be there the whole year. They couldn't, you obviously weren't going to be able to bring in people and they stay for 1 month. But anybody who brought in a family got a $500 discount off their May tuition. And now you need to remember to budget for this. This is important. You don't want to say that and then have a, $3,000 or $4,000 expense that you didn't plan for. But that does help, and people like that. So it helps recruiting. Another thing I did is I did email campaigns. I did one year, a couple of years actually. I did top 10 reasons to choose our school. I sent it weekly. I did alumni testimonials. I did parent testimonials, faculty. I highlighted certain things that we did really well. I don't know that I sent it every week. I think I sent it maybe every 2 weeks. I divided it out, and I did it during spring. So people were continually seeing, like I did one, I highlighted the environmental side of what the school is doing. Then I highlighted the religious side. And I sent those out also to our parishioners. And again, what I like about email is that parishioners or families that are maybe recruiting another family can just forward that to that family. And I might not have their email address, but they do. So I like that. And then the last way of marketing that I think we miss, and I love this idea, but it does take time, is the idea of inbound marketing. And that's when you create content for your parents. We're doing a little bit of this in SAES, where we're trying to create content that's helpful. White papers on parenting, doing podcasts, blogs. I know TMI does a podcast at their school. Writing blogs. The head of school puts together a blog, or you do videos of things that you're doing in the school, a science lesson or whatever. The idea around making the school the expert in parenting. You are creating yourself to be the expert and helping parents in their role as the parent. And you know, parents, as parents, this is our most important job, is raising our kids. And if we're going to a school that's helping us do that, wow, that's an added bonus. And so if you can find the time, it can be time. It costs time. It takes time to write white papers or to do podcasts or blogs, but I think it's a really important thing that you can do for your families, and a service that you can give, and it's just a great marketing idea. So let's just summarize by saying that marketing is a team effort. I used to say that, you know, I almost put up a picture that was a picture of one person rowing a boat. That is not what you want to do. You want to be this picture. You want to be everyone's rowing in the same direction and working together, and looks like a team. And that means that your board and your faculty and your parents and your administrative staff and your admissions group, everybody's got the same message, and they're saying the same message. And if you do that, you're going to be successful, and you're going to get people to take a look at your school. So with that, I am finished. I know that was a lot, but I hope it was helpful, and I hope that that it will help people have some ideas about how to get new families and keep their current families.